Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. I'm going to kind of do a slightly different video than usual today. A lot of times I'll see in comments that, why can't we see a review on YouTube that doesn't have a Glock in it or a reference to or a mention to a Glock. And of course, we usually use this Glock 19 for comparisons from a size perspective and, overall layout and capabilities. So does that mean I'm a Glock fanboy? Well, to partially answer the question, I do like Glocks. 3 out of the 4 on this table I carry on a regular basis, part of a rotation, depending on what it is I'm doing or wearing. So yes, I do like Glocks. But the other definition that comes in with a fanboy is somebody that thinks all the other guns are junk. And I don't fit that profile. I think there's a lot of other good guns out on the market. Some are better than Glocks for one thing or another. Others are at least equal to Glocks. So Glock isn't the only good gun out there. I'll tell you why I like Glocks. What is it that makes me carry 3 out of the 4 on this table? And the one that I don't carry, why is it? So we'll start with, just from an EDC perspective, I'll grab the right one, this Glock 26. I carry this almost every day. It fits in a pocket, it's useful as a nightstand gun, you get 10 rounds. Everything about this gun is perfect for what I want to do. And by the way, because we're going to pick up and move around a whole lot of guns today, I'm not going to take your time safety checking every one of these. Hammer and I both safety checked every single gun that you're going to see. So they're all clear. And so of course we're going to follow safe practices. But this gun just fits me. Now it fits my hand well. And that's one thing I find about Glocks is they just fit me well. Others they may not. The other thing that I like about them is I like a lot of different calibers. So here's a 9mm, here's a 10mm, and 10mm's got to be among my favorite cartridges, and a 380. And I'll carry this when I'm wearing clothes that would inhibit carrying the 26 or the 29. So it doesn't really matter what common pistol caliber you want, whether it's 380 all the way up to 10mm, Glock makes a gun in that caliber, and they work the same. So if I'm carrying this one day and then switch to this, later in the evening to go out, and then pick this up the next day, they're going to work the same. So I don't have to worry about, do I have the Smith & Wesson in my pocket today because I wanted this caliber, and then tomorrow I got something else. I've got consistency. They just work the same and they're reliable. Now I pointed out 3 guns that I told you I carried, and one that I don't. That also happens to be the one I frequently use for comparisons, and it's also the one I tend to recommend to somebody who comes to me and says, I'm looking for a gun, and I want a first gun. What would you recommend I start looking at? So why would I recommend this and not carry it? Well, one of the reasons is I can carry something like this and handle it and control it. So I can actually pick one that's suited to exactly what I want. This one kind of does a really good job of doing everything. Nightstand, inside the waistband, pretty much anybody can hold it, control it. It's one that there's a high probability, no matter what your capabilities are, you can operate this thing. Why do I use it for comparison? Because you're probably not likely to walk into a gun store in the United States, at least, in whatever state or county you're in, that isn't going to have a Glock 19. So if I tell you it's about the size of a Glock 19, or the trigger is lighter or heavier than a Glock 19, you can go find one really easily and try it out and understand what it is that you're trying to baseline compare it against. Yeah, I like Glocks. Are they the only good gun on the planet? No. In fact, let me move a couple of these off the table, because a lot of times I will either take out a new shooter and I'll bring more than one gun, or I'll recommend that they check a couple others out. So yeah, check out the Glock 19. Also check out the Walther PPQ. Equally reliable, just as good of a gun in many respects, and actually a nicer trigger. I can do a trigger job on a Glock for 25 bucks and get a trigger that I just love. Many other guns, it's $100, $200 to buy parts, and you have to take apart the whole gun, and it takes a day. Watch our MP 2.0 video. Glock, you can do it fairly quickly. This, you don't do it, you just use it. The trigger on this is awesome. There's nothing that I have fired from a pistol standpoint that has a better trigger than this, unless you get into some of the finer 1911s. I also frequently recommend Springfield XDM series. This one happens to be a 40 cal. Most of the time I'm going to recommend a 9mm to somebody that's wanting some guidance. They used to make a compact 3.8. 9mm was a perfect perfect size. They don't make that particular version anymore. But these are all also equally reliable. But what you will find is, the big box gun stores are going to have all three. But a lot of times somebody will go into a smaller local gun store and they won't have either of these. They'll have the 19. Of course they'll have the 19. But these may be a little bit harder to find. So at least if I've given them this 19 as the baseline, say the PPQ is about the same size, slightly different grip angle and texturing and a nicer trigger, they can go pull out a Glock 19 and figure out which way they're, what the difference is between them. So if I'm taking a shooter to the range to let them try out different guns, usually it's these three I bring. But why don't I just say, Glock is it, just get the Glock, or, none of these are going to be any different or better? Well, there are some differences. First off, the Glock trigger it's the way it's set up. The Glock trigger has kind of a sharp wall and a crisp break, and I like that. I like being able to pull on the trigger, hit a wall, a distinct sharp wall, and then break through it. That's what I like when I'm shooting a gun. If you take the PPQ, the trigger is softer. There's not really a discernible break, and it just kind of slides through very lightly into the break. If some shooters may have a problem with doing unexpected double taps, because it is actually a light trigger and it doesn't have that distinct break. So there are differences. The grip angles are different. When I pick up a Glock and hold it, but when I pop this thing up, the sights just line up for me. The grip angle fits my hand. A lot of other people, they bring it up and then they have to do something to it. And I run into the same thing when I do the Springfield. When I bring the Springfield up, I usually have to adjust. It doesn't center for me automatically. Does that mean it's not a good gun? No, it just means for my hands, the way I grip, the way I choose to present the weapon, the Glock fits me better, probably because I spend more time with them. Other people will find that the Glock doesn't line up right for them, but something like this, the XDM or the PPQ does. Glock only has one notch on the Picatinny rail. Some people don't like that. The aftermarket's pretty well dealt with that, but when you look at the other two, you get some more notches on the Picatinny rail. From a sights perspective, a lot of people like to bash on the Glock sights. I like them. Yes, they're plastic. I've never broken a Glock sight. I go out in the woods, I use them when I'm doing construction, I've fallen on them. I have never successfully broken a Glock sight. Now this particular one, the FS has steel sights, but the majority of the Glock sights are polymer. But unless you're doing something with it or trying to use the gun to lift a truck, you're probably not going to break the sights. But some of these other guns have factory sights. PPQ has these nice 3-dot sights. They're real easy to see. I happen to be able to work well with those U-dot sights. I never have a problem pulling a group with them. But these 3-dot sights are really nice. Now this one we did change out the sights. And by the way, I sometimes will change out the sights on even the Glocks, depending on what it is I'm wanting to do with it, and what the purpose of that particular gun is. That 29 had these TFX sights on it. So changing out sights is relatively easy on some of these guns, these XDMs in particular. The sights are absolutely miserable to change. You definitely are going to use a sight pusher, and even that, there's going to be swearing. These Glocks, yeah, it's easier with a sight pusher for the rear sight. The front one's just a tool. But the rear one, you can use a punch and push them out and swap out sights. So, doing things to a Glock is generally easier than doing things to other guns. But to some people, that may not be important. A lot of people aren't going to do gunsmith work. They're not going to hand sit, especially somebody that's coming to me and saying, I need one gun. I want one that I can carry if I choose to, one that I can put in my car, one that I can use as a nightstand. Basically, I'm going to have the one. And really, at that point, you're going to be doing something, the 19, the PPQ, the XDM. Now, are these the only good guns out there? No, there's others out there. But these three have a proven track record, and at any given time, other variations of the Glock I carry. Hammer has carried this PPQ. He's also got an XDM, not this particular one generally, but because it's longer. But he's carried XDMs, and they've proven reliable. They're guns that when we take them to the range, when we take them out and use them, they just work every time, all three of these. So these manufacturers, these three, tend to be ones that we frequently recommend to somebody that isn't going to either have a bunch of them or have a lot of time to spend vetting different guns. If they buy any one of these three in the various sizes that they're offered in, it's just going to work. So then the question is this the complete list? Is these the only guns that you think are any good? A handful of Glocks and a PPQ and a Springfield? Not really. Smith & Wesson really stepped up the game with the 2.0. Now this one's got an Apex trigger in it that Apex sent us that we installed, and makes it for the trigger to be awesome. The original M&P, I thought the trigger was hideous. Absolutely positively hideous. And I tried multiple different ones at different times and came to the same conclusion. They came out with a 2.0, they ended up coming out with a trigger that's equally as good as the stock Glock trigger or the Springfield trigger. It's kind of hard to touch that PPQ. Now, I did do the trigger job when Apex sent us this trigger, and the Apex kit is an awesome kit, but you have to take the sight off the gun to put the to replace some of the parts that are involved in doing a trigger job. It's complicated. If you're going to take the 2.0 right out of the box and use it, yeah, they're actually quite reliable. They're comfortable. It's a Glock 19 size gun. It fits in that same category, and they've got nice 3-dot sights, and they've been proven reliable. Does Smith & Wesson make anything else good? Yeah. These actually are in our get-home bags. We've got a shield in each one of our get-home bags. Would I have put the original, this is the 2.0, would I have put the original 2.0 or M&P shield in the get-home bag? Absolutely not. It had, if I thought this trigger on the original M&P was hideous, the shield took it to another level of hideousness. The 2.0 has a very, very nice trigger. What they've done is they've kind of shortened the take-up. A little bit of a crisp break, but it's a nice, crisp, clean break, and it's relatively light. The other one had a lot of grit and scratch, and it traveled forever, and it was heavy. So, yeah, Smith & Wesson lately, since they've gotten off this kick that they were on where the triggers had to be 20-pound triggers, has really stepped up their game, and they're putting out some good guns. And I would recommend this to anybody that doesn't want the Glock variation, looking for a single stack subcompact to put in concealed carry or a get-home bag. They're in ours. They actually work quite well. But, okay, so you don't want the M&P. Somebody's scared you off it, or you took the original trigger. Well, Walther again. It's got a PPS. This is the original one. This is one of those cases where they came out with a new and improved, and I think they forgot the improved part. When they came out with the M2 version of this one, the grip was all sculpted and rounded, kind of like the PPQ, which, by the way, in the PPQ is a really nice grip. On that gun, it made it hard to figure it out. It was too thin to be all that fat and sculpted. The gun just didn't work well. Hammer had one. Neither one of us could shoot the thing well, so we got rid of it. But anytime we've ever put this in somebody's hands, which these single stack 9s tend to be a little bit difficult for some people to control, people can shoot this well. It looks kind of weird because it's flat. It's like somebody ran it over. There's the tread marks. But it actually just fits right in your hand, and you can grip it well. So I would definitely recommend the original PPS to somebody that wasn't interested in the M&P or the Glock. But it usually ends up being one that I recommend later in the cycle. Not because it's not good, but it's going to be harder to find. You're going to have to work to get your hands on one of these. A Glock 42, any gun store on the planet's going to have them. The shield's probably another one. You're going to be able to get that little shield pretty much anywhere. So I also do try to recommend things that once you've convinced yourself you want one, you've tried mine, you've fired it, or you've tried a buddy's or rented one, and you say, yeah, I want that gun. I'm going to get that gun. You can actually pull it off. There's others out there a little bit harder to find and a little bit less aftermarket support if you're wanting to do something with it. Another one that's kind of more recent on the market is something like this FN 509 medium. Basically, it's another Glock 19 size gun, and it's relatively new to the market from a marketing perspective. The 509 has been around for a long time, but the shorter version, effectively compact version, is a little bit newer. It's going to be a little harder to find. Nice sights. This is actually a really nice gun. Would I recommend this gun? Yes. Would I send you on a snipe hunt to go find one? Probably not. You'd have a little harder time finding it. I'd point you towards something that I know you can get. But if you came to me and said, a buddy of mine's got a 509 medium or a regular full-size 509, whichever, would you recommend the gun? The answer would be yes. These work quite well. They've got a nice trigger. They've got nice sights. Ergonomics on them are really good. They're not a Glock, but I would still recommend them. So sometimes what I recommend might be a little different than, outright would be a little different than if you came to me and said, is gun A a good gun? Very rarely do I actually dislike a gun. There are some guns out there that I'm not fans of. Caltech would be one of them. There are some guns out there where a particular manufacturer may make good guns, but this particular gun of theirs just wasn't a good idea. And we've run in, even Walther's made a couple dogs. So it is something where I look at each gun on its own merits, and I don't necessarily expect everything to be a Glock 19. But if you can at least be equal to a Glock 19, it's like, when you're looking at economy cars. If you can match the Civic, you're going to succeed, because that's kind of, in the Honda Civic in the car market is kind of the baseline for economy cars. There's others out there that do different things, but that's the one that everybody wants to beat. Kind of Glock has become the one that everybody wants to beat. If you can be a Glock killer, you'll see that phrase used in videos a lot, then you kind of have arrived. But overall, though I do like Glocks, I choose them and I carry them. Like my Glock 29, bring some of these others back onto the field here. I'm not going to say that they're the only ones that I would ever consider or ever do anything with. We try to be open and agnostic and basically look at each on its own merits. And I've actually tried a high point. Got a high point. Ugly thing. Heavy thing. Would I carry it? No. Is it fun to take it to the range? Absolutely. And I can tell you something about that high point. It works. Every time. You load it up with ammo, you pull the trigger, and it does what it's supposed to do and just works. So I won't really even trash talk high point, which of course seems to be everybody's pet whipping boy. Everybody likes to pick on high point. But in all honesty, they actually make a good quality gun, and if that's the price range you're in, yeah, it's going to work for you. So I'll go to Glock. I'm going to put a Glock in my holster. Hammer's probably going to put a PPQ in his holster, or the Springfield or an FNS. He tends to kind of move around a little bit more. He'll go a little bit more diverse what he'll carry on any given day. Chances are pretty good if you shake me down on any given day, a Glock's going to fall out. Just a matter of which size it is, which caliber it is, but it's probably going to be a Glock that falls out. But as you have watched our different videos, you'll see that there's all kinds of good guns on the market that aren't Glocks. So in summary, yeah, I'm a Glock fanboy. But I'm also a Springfield fanboy and a Walther fanboy, and starting to actually kind of really like Smith & Wesson for some of their latest offerings. So really, I just like guns. Really just like guns. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there if you do. Also just want to let you know we're on GunStreamer in case we fall victim to one of the YouTube purges, but we're certainly not abandoning YouTube. We're going to continue to produce videos for YouTube just like we do today. And we want to thank our YouTube subscribers and Patreon supporters for supporting the channel. Beyond that, have a great day. Thank you.